All right, class. First off, as always, good day. Excuse me. So today, what we're going to be talking about is last class we talked about early man, caveman. Now we're going to get progressively more into the modern times. Like I said, we just started with the early man. Now we're going to progress to when people actually started writing and stuff like that. We're going to talk about the first empires. We're going to be skipping over like the Bronze Age and the Copper Age and stuff like that, because that was early man, and because of time restraint, we're just going to skip over it. Now, believe me, I'm hurt to the soul, but still, um, we got to do it. Okay, so here we go. So here are your essential questions. Um, how would the world be like if we didn't have a writing system? What are some benefits and problems to creating a city by a river? And can a large amount of people live together without laws? Okay, so again, if you didn't hear from the last video, um, when you take your first test, you'll have an essay question and more likely be one of those questions. Okay, so you'll need to learn or use the knowledge you learned in class and on these videos to help you out. Excuse me. So the objective to analyze the difference between the two writing systems by the Sumerians and the Egyptians, and to critique why it would take centuries until women were given rights like Hammurabi gave. We're going to be talking about him in a second. Okay. So let's move on.
Get over here!
All right, so as you can see, we're talking about the Sumerians, Mesopotamians, and the Egyptians today in this video. This one will be kind of long, so bear with me. Again, make sure you have the Google Doc ready to go, and if not, that you have some notes, and when you get to the questions on the video, you can just transfer them to the Google Doc. So here's the warm-up picture, as you can see. The guy says, now, I don't mean to imply anything, but some of these seem an awful lot like the Code of Hammurabi. Okay, so if you don't know what that is, that's the 10 Commandments. Okay, so the first question is like, what are like two things that you see? The next one is, what do you think this artist is trying to say? So go ahead and write your answers to those. Pause the video, okay, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So we're going to start off with Mesopotamia. Now, it was called land between two rivers. So if you look at the map right there, you'll see Mesopotamia, and then between the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, there's Mesopotamia. Now, thing is, it's one thing to put your kind of like where you're going to live near water. It's smart, right? Because that's water you need for life. So it is smart to have water by river. But the thing is, some of you guys may know or may not know, rivers sometimes overflow. And if you have your town right by a river, it could overflow. Now look at Mesopotamia, they're between two rivers. So if both of them overflood, the Mesopotamia might get like drowned or at least buried in a couple feet of water. What they did is they learned how to control the flow of the river using irrigation and drainage ditch. They learned basically how to control it so that if it does reach a certain level, it'll, they have a contingency plan for that, a backup plan, so that's pretty smart for ancient people. Now, city-states, these were cities that were big enough to maintain political and economic control. All right, they didn't really need a nation, type of thing. They were just basically cities who were self-sufficient. They could take care of themselves. Right? Now, city-states would fight each other for essential things, primarily land and water, especially water. Drinkable water. That was key because, as you can see around, that's a desert area. So to have fresh water was immense. And I'm sure some of you guys think, well, they're by a river. What's they're by the ocean. What's up with that? Well, because ocean water, if you never tasted it, it's you can't really drink it. You'll get dehydrated faster than you get hydrated because it's salt water. You know, so there's that. So now we're up to your first question. Why do you think a lot of ancient civilizations live near rivers? So, based off what you just learned, stuff you may have already learned in other classes, stuff like that, um, go ahead and answer that question. Pause the video and answer that question. We're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so now we're going to talk about the first empire. Now, an empire is a large political unit or state. All right, they're big. They usually have one leader, and they control a good amount of people and or territory. Okay, the first true emperor, his name was Sargon, and those are little statue things made of him. Okay, he was the leader of the Akkadians, and the thing is, his city state was overrun by the Sumerians. Uh, And the thing is, they only lasted for about like 200 years, you know. But the thing is, they were still technically the world's first empire. Okay, so that might be a question on your test. Who was the first uh, emperor, world emperor, type of thing. Now, the thing is, we're going to be talking about a little bit of this of Hammurabi. Hammurabi and his code are infamous. They almost basically go together. Hammurabi controlled two city-states and created a Mesopotamian kingdom, right? So he took two city-states, and remember, like I said, each one can hold their own. He had control of two of them. Now, the thing is, after he died in 1750 BC, the following kings after him, they were really weak. Hammurabi commanded the respect. He had that presence that people were just like, okay. And one of the things he did was he created a series of laws. All right. Um, and they took serious criminal offenses. There was some swift punishments. So, like, of all of his lists, I think there's like 200 something laws that they created. Number six, if anyone steals the property of a temple, like church, temple place, or a court, he shall be put to death, and also the one who receives the stolen goods from him shall be put to death. So not only is it the person stealing, but the person who took it as a gift, or somebody who bought it, that they should have been like, where'd you get this from? Where'd you get this, whatever, gold statue or whatever, you know? So they should think, okay, why is this person selling this item all dirt cheap when it's worth, you know, 10 times as much, 5 times as much? Why something's up here? Think before you buy, type of thing. Rule 195: if a son strikes his father, so in other words, son hits his dad, his hand shall be basically sawed off. So they would whatever hand you slapped or hit your dad with, they would cut that hand off. Now the thing is, the codes were not completely equal. Okay, and this statue is a depiction of Hammurabi. Okay. What it means by that, the laws not being equal in a sense, is, let's say, a noble person, a person who's higher in society, richer, type of thing. If they hurt a common person, they would get punished. They would, right? But if a common person hurt a noble person, their punishment would be harsher. Let's say the nobleman, if let's say they hurt a commoner, they might get, a couple lashes on the back with a whip, right? Whereas a common person, if they hurt a noble person, they may be, whipped, put out in public, so they can't move, and people could do things to them. I don't know, something harsher than the original way. Now, the code had different laws about different things. Um, Consumer protection. So making sure that you when you buy something that you're getting what you're getting, and you're not being cheated. Marriage and family. Rights for men. What are man's rights? Women's rights. Now, the thing is, there wasn't much, but still, there was something. And this is like the first time ever women's rights are mentioned at all. And thing is, they're not mentioned after that. Okay. Placement at the home. A father's role for his children and his wife. So, what's a man's job? What's he supposed to do? Now, this things you see on the side, that's actually Hammurabi's code written out for people to see. Okay. So my question to you is, why do you think Hammurabi's code had rights for women? Why include them? Right? So think about it. Why would this ancient civilization have mentioned that women deserve some rights? Okay. The second question is, why do you think future civilizations had little to no rights for women? So why is these guys in ancient time have mentioned women have rights, women have the right to this, to that, and but after that, there's like nothing for centuries until, I mean, the past couple hundred years, really, that women are finally given a lot of rights. They're given little here and there, but it's nothing compared to what a man gets. So why do you think it takes centuries upon centuries for women to finally get rights? So take a couple moments, think about them, write them out. There's the writing prompts for you guys to help you out. And please follow the writing prompts. Okay, if you don't know how to start off a sentence correctly, use the writing prompts. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so let me move my camera real quickly over here. So the Sumerians, they had a writing system, but the thing is, what they did is they used wedges to represent letters. Now, I've heard some students in the past tell me, well, that's stupid using little, little simple thing like that for, to mean something. It's like, well, that's what letters are too, are letters. If you really think about it, there's lines and swigglies. So to them, ours would look like, what are they? What's this? That's just swiggles. Ours is structured. It has, things like that. Now, how they wrote, what they used to write, there's actually a picture right here how they did it. They would take a piece of a bark thing, bamboo, whatever, and cut it up and then dip it in the ink stuff and make the angles and things like that. So you couldn't write whatever in that type of language. It was reeds, my bad. I didn't see the notes right there. They used reeds as a writing tool. The thing is, not everyone was taught to write. Rich kids were taught to write. And basically, once you learned to write in the Sumerian culture back then, you were set for life. You could get basically any job you wanted. You could do whatever you wanted, really, because you knew how to write, and that was rare. Um, the trade-off is that school lasted from sun up to sundown. Right? School was all day. So when I hear some students go, "Oh my God, I'm here all day," ugh, and they get school at 8 and they get off at noon. It's like that's not all day. All day is right at 6 o'clock in the morning, all the way until like 6 or 7 at night. That's all day, and that's what they did. Also, discipline was harsh. So if a kid was not getting it, they get a little punishment, a whack in the hand with those reeds, some type of punishment. So they had to stay focused. All right, so now we're going to move on to the Egyptians. Now, the thing is, so here's the thing. In Egypt, King Menes, he was one of like really the first to start the dynasties in Egypt. He united Lower and Upper Egypt to create the first real kingdom. All right, now the thing is, I guess, forgot to mention a little bit, is Egypt was basically kind of segregated. They had their own upper level, lower level. Um, One side saw themselves more superior than the other, and vice versa, type of stuff. But he united them and served as the first king. Now the thing is, there was three kingdom eras: old, middle, and new. Okay, the old kingdom was the age of prosperity. Okay, just like anything else, when you're starting something new, you're going to explore. You're going to do great. Majority of the time. The Great Pyramids were built at this time, so there's a picture of them right there. The biggest pyramid is for, of course, the pharaoh. The smaller ones is for his family. Uh, and then the rectangles, if you look at on the sides and where the big one is, the shadow, you'll see some rectangle looking ones. Those were for like his officials, his priests, people, and things like that, his advisors, things like that. Now the bodies were mummified before burial. Now the thing is, it's not just like they get the cloth and they just wrap them up and there you go. They would take out the organs, and there was special tools they would use. One of the weirdest ones was the one to get the brain. They would crack it through the nose, right, and then they would just basically start pulling. It was really, it's actually interesting. And then they would put the organs in these little containers. All right, so if you ever seen the movie The Mummy with Brendan Fraser, that's basically it. Okay, those little containers that these three guys, four guys, whatever they had, they would put those organs in there: brain, liver, lungs, stomach, intestines. And like I said, it took about 70 days to take all that out, clean it up basically. Then they would cover the body in salt because salt preserves. Okay. And then they would fill it with spices, things like that, um, and then wrap it in linen. Okay. And that's how you basically preserve a mummy. That's why they were so intact, because all that inside stuff, the brains, liver, lungs, all that stuff, um, it builds up moisture, it liquefies, and it makes the body nasty. You know, uh, but you take all that out, you basically bury it in salt and spices. Um, it's going to preserve. Okay? Now here's your next question. Why do you think the mummies mummify their kings, queens, the royal families? What are some possible reasons they would mummify them? Okay, so think about it. Why would they do this to these people? Okay, so there's the writing prompt on the bottom. Go ahead, pause the video, write your answers out. Excuse me. Uh, we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so then the Middle Kingdom. This was the age, it's called the Golden Age of Stability. They were now known more at this time for conquering. They would get more land, things like that, and they established better trading routes and trading partnerships with surrounding countries and stuff like that. The last one, the New Kingdom, was primarily known for being rich and powerful, but even though they were powerful, they eventually collapsed. Okay, um, they were attacked by this group called the Hycosos. Okay, so I apologize for that. But the Hycosos, I always mess up with that name. Um, they basically took over part of Egypt, and the thing is, they learned how to use bronze, you know, and they used it not only for tools but for weapons. So the thing is, the Egyptians actually were like, oh, so this material is stronger than this material, right? This bronze, right? That's what you call it. And they use that knowledge to defeat that group. So they used their own technology from the conquerors to defeat them. All right. Now, the pharaohs would use their wealth, their power, their money to basically continue building temples after temples, things like that. Um, but then one pharaoh in particular said, you know what? Instead of having a god for the sun, which was Ra, let's have, how about a god, just one for everything? Instead of a god for the sun, the moon, the wind, the sand, things like that. And a lot of Egyptians were like, how dare you? How dare you say anything like that? That there's only one God. Oh, oh. So they had that kind of mentality. So the Pharaoh's like, okay, cool. All right, just whatever. You know. Uh, Now the sea people, as the Egyptians called them, drove the Egyptians back to their original land, like back to the time when they were um, in the old kingdom, right? All the land they gained from the new kingdom and the middle kingdom was taken away, and they ended up going back to their original size. And by the time Alexander the Great comes up, he basically conquers them easily. Okay. Now the thing is, in the first century, the Cleopatra the Seventh, the one Cleopatra that everyone knows. Now that's another thing too. A lot of people think when they hear Cleopatra, they think that she was the only one. No, she was number seven. Okay, number seven of all Cleopatras. That's the one that they said was so beautiful, so just beautiful, right? That she tried to reinstate their independence, right? Basically, try to make Egypt back to the power they were before. Problem was, she got involved with the Rome, uh, with Mark Antony and some of that, and that ended up costing them. And eventually, Egypt was taken over by Rome. All right, so the class levels were pretty simple back then. Pharaoh and the family on top, of course. The next level down would be the nobles and priests, the upper class. Middle class, it was the merchants, the artists, and the scribes. And of course, lower level, always the poor people, the peasants. Now, the thing that made Egyptians kind of like memorable is their hieroglyphics, their writing system. Okay, using pictures to represent letters. All right, now some people say like, oh, that's weird to do something like that. But thing is, if you look at our letters, they're basically scribbles and straight lines. Um, so it's no different, except these guys actually use pictures. Now, here's another thing too. A lot of people think that the artist or the people who wrote that they got their chisel and just and wrote the whatever was written down on the obelisks and on the tombs and some of that. Um, but that's not the case. What happens is the scribes, the people who they actually learned how to write, they would pre-write everything on the stone, right? They would write it down on the stone with the, you know, charcoal or whatever, and it was the artist's job to create, basically take out all the rest of the stuff, leave the, make the, the hand or the feather or whatever, make it look realistic, make it look like it was popping out, give it life in a sense. Okay. So again, the artist didn't write anything, it was the scribes who did, and the artist just made the uh, actual object look good. All right, so that's the end of this lecture video. Um, the exit ticket, tell me what you learned today. Tell me what you learned. What did you find interesting? What did you didn't like? What do you think could have been explained better? Is there something you heard about and that you wanted to mention? Like, hey, you forgot about this. You didn't mention this at all. Let me know. Okay. Also, on the Google uh, Classroom, next week you're going to have an assignment where you're actually going to be writing in Egyptian. All right, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to be fun. All right, so you guys take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys later.